Hello. Breaker, breaker. 1-9. Is this a gear tasting question? Hello. Hey, we're now taking questions for gear tasting over the CB radio. Whoa. So now you can find us on the CB radio if you're local. Channel 1 through 40. 9's emergency though, so don't try to contact us there. Hey guys, welcome to Gear Tasting. Today I wanted to start off talking about some new products from a company called Armor Concepts. I've talked in the past about home security stuff and preventing kick-ins for doors, and Armor Concepts is a company that makes door reinforcement parts that will help with prevent those types of incidents from occurring. So, and when I say prevent, I mean literally it prevents it. If you take a standard wooden door, you will literally kick a hole through the door before you're able to get into that. So I haven't tested Armor Concepts products like I have in the past with other companies' products like Door Devil, but it's a very similar concept. I know Armor Concepts has been around, I think, longer than anybody doing this. So I'm very interested to check out how their installs go and things like that. So again, the premise of that is distributing force. So if you take a well-placed kick on a door by somebody, whether that's somebody that knows what they're doing and donkey kicks it versus somebody that tries to do the frontal flying Chuck Norris attack into your door, there's what's going to give first is the actual deadbolt location where it actually meets the door frame. So that wood is going to splinter and give way right there because all that's preventing that, or all that's holding your door on, is that piece of metal that goes into the door frame like that. So there's a couple of screws and the plate that actually is in the frame, and then there's the actual deadbolt that goes through there. So the lock mechanism where the deadbolt is typically isn't going to give way on the door side. It's going to be on the frame side, and it'll splinter and doors get kicked in that way. So and that's most commonly in residential door frames and things like that. With commercial buildings, it's not as big of a concern because most of those are steel door frames that are a little harder to get through. You know, if we're talking home security, it's always better to have a steel door than a wooden door, just FYI. It'll hold up a lot better against attacks. So something that happens on the commercial side and sometimes with steel doors is that you get prying. So people will try to pry with screwdrivers or something like that into the actual lock mechanism and disengage it that way. So Armor Concepts makes a product called a pry shield, and that's kind of the first thing I want to talk about. So the pry shield, just kind of, if you can imagine the old credit card trick where you can, disengage a lock with nothing more than a credit card, that's the kind of thing that it prevents. So it gets put onto the outside of the door with some screws that I thought were kind of ingenious. I'm sure these are probably common, but I've never really encountered these before. So what they are is they're flathead screws. So the clockwise direction, which would tighten the screw, allows you to get a flathead screwdriver in and actually get tension on that to twist the screw in. But if you tried to back it out or reverse the screw, it slips, and that's based on the design of the screw. I thought that was kind of interesting. So even though this pry shield is installed on the outside of the door, somebody still wouldn't be able to easily come up with a screwdriver and just take the pry shield off. It would take some work. I'm not saying it's impossible, but again, what I say all the time is all security is just buying time. You're trying to slow down the attack or slow down the intruder or the burglar of getting into your home. So the more things you can do to enhance your security in that form or fashion will slow them down and buy you time to either defend yourself or call the police, which you should be doing both, but that's kind of the gist of the pry shield. So then we kind of move over to what they call their door armor. So this gets installed on the frame side in a door. So where the deadbolt comes through and makes contact with the frame, that's what these little pieces are here for too. You can kind of twist these and open them up and pop those out exactly where your deadbolt comes through at. So one gripe I've had with things like this in the past, and I'm kind of optimistic about the size of this thing too and all the different locations that are available for punch out with these, is that typically the door sensor or the contact for an alarm system is something you have to kind of work your way around with these. So you'll wind up having to get a bigger size drill bit and drilling through these to open up that hole where the actual contact is coming from, if it's in that door side. Sometimes they come from the top, and that's perfect. That's even better if your alarm contact is on the top. So if you have the choice of figuring out where to put an alarm contact, the upper location on the door is always better in my opinion, because it's not on the door side or the frame side. And it's a little bit better when you're installing things like this. So again, it's all about that distribution of force. So instead of that force occurring right on the deadbolt and the latch itself from the door, because typically there's a deadbolt and then there's also a latch on whatever kind of handle or I guess thumb that you depress on the handle itself. So that's all that's preventing that from getting kicked in. So with this, those two pieces, both the deadbolt and the other lock, are engaging with a big steel plate like this. So it's distributing the force along the entire dimension of this. That's why it's so long. So you're gaining an advantage that way. So it's really hard to kick it in. And then additionally, there's huge long screws. So if you've ever taken the screws out of a door frame and had to replace your door hardware, you'll know those screws are pretty short. They're probably less than 2 inches a piece if I were to make a measurement guess on there. But these are great because they're super long. So not only are they long to engage with this into the door frame, but then they're also meant, there's so many of them because they're meant to replace the screws from the hinge side too. So that's something you have to worry about too. A well-placed kick can sometime against the hinges can also throw a door off too, because if you've ever replaced hinges on a door, you'll know those are pretty small too. So these screws will kind of help increase the security of your hinge side because they're so long. And what I like about Armor Concepts is that they include a couple of different things too. It's not just a plate. They also include these, don't want to get the hinge shield is what they call them. So the way these work is that this actually fits over the 2 of the 3 or 4 hinges on your door. If you have, sometimes some doors have 4, especially on big front doors, some have 3, but 2 of those will basically, you pull out the middle screws in those hinges and you slap on a hinge plate, put those screws back in the actual hinge, and then add in additional screws on the top and bottom of this. So if you can think of that distribution of force again, you're doing the same thing on the hinge side with these big plates too. So that's 2 locations that it does that. Then they've got these things called door shields. So over the deadbolt part of your door and over the, I don't really know what to call that other than a latch. So on the latch side of the door too. So both of those locations, they include these hinge door shields. So you can put those on to further reinforce that too. So it's really a complete package, and I'm looking forward to really getting kind of hands-on with this, and hopefully we can do another test that we did like for the Door Devil. I'll link to that video so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But we had a, what was it, a college football linebacker donkey kicking a door that we had on a test frame, and man, we couldn't get through it, and we wound up actually breaking the door before the hinge side or the latch side got through. So these things are very powerful. I would call them a mandatory upgrade in any home if you're considering home security, because getting doors kicked in, especially in the backyard and things like that, are really something you need to pay attention to. And what I also like about Armor Concepts is that they protect other methods of door configurations too. So while this is for a standard, outward opening door where the hinges are on the inside, which is always a more secure method, you want those hinges, or the actual hinges you can tap out obviously on the inside. You don't want somebody to be able to access those because they can always tap out the pin and just open the door. But what else they do is they secure things like the back patio sliding door. They have a kit for that too, which I think is super cool. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that's installed and what that does. And then they also offer double door or French door security too. So notoriously double doors, if you have a front door on your home that has 2 doors, that's actually one of the most insecure methods for a front door too, because think about it, all you have is that deadbolt and the latch, but then on the bottom, the only thing that's securing that second door to the bottom is typically some type of pin in the top and bottom of your actual, door frame itself. And that's super easy to kick right through. So notoriously, I've always looked for that, and Armor Concepts is the first company that I've come across that has security measures for those. And they also offer security for side light doors, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, so that's a front door that has a little pane of glass or something right here. I can talk forever on home security, so apologize. Those things are notorious for just people just breaking out that little piece of window too and coming around and opening your door, which is super easy to do if you have a deadbolt on the inside that can just be opened. That's why I advocate having a double cylinder lock so that the door on the back, or the lock on the back side, is also lockable, so that if someone was to break through that little piece of glass, they couldn't just reach in, flip a thumb turn and then get into your house. So, but again, because of that piece of glass right there, the door frame itself is less secure, if you can kind of imagine that, because while a door frame comes on either side of the door, now you have this piece of glass there that makes that piece where the actual door or deadbolt fits into even less secure, because that's less material between the house and where the door closes into, if that makes sense. But they list exterior doors, interior doors, sliding glass doors, double and French doors, side light doors, and prying protection. So those are all the different things that they do for door protection, which I think is super cool. Again, company is called Armor Concepts. I think they're www.armorconcepts.com, so definitely check them out. All right, welcome to Questions Over Coffee. Today I want to start with a little shout out to Hero Labradors. They are a place that donates AKC Labradors, or American Kennel Club Labradors, to service dog training programs for wounded warriors. So I just wanted to quickly tell you about that. If you know of anybody that might need those services, reach out to herolabradors.com. So first thing. Second thing, first question is from Theron H over email. Sorry, but I don't have social media. It's okay. And I have two questions for gear tasting. First, how come you never seem to include some sort of detainment or non-lethal in your first, second, or third line? Well, because a gentleman never restrains and tells, but I'm not feeling very gentlemanly today, so I'll go ahead and walk you through that part. And you say non-lethal, so I have talked a little bit about that before, but first I want to address the kind of detainment thing. So really, if I was in a situation where I needed to detain somebody, it would be with some type of zip tie, and I have these larger zip ties in my third line that I use. Sometimes you can carry these in the second line too. You can take long zip ties like this and sometimes put them through your kit. So Molly or Pal's webbing is perfect for this too. You could kind of stick those through here, or maybe even double them up. That's probably what I'd do. Probably double them up like this. If you needed kind of faster access to them, this is kind of a great way to do it too, because you can leave a loop, which could get caught on some things, so that's always a concern. But something kind of in this form or fashion, you can weave through here too, and that way you could kind of just reach back and pull that loop and pull that out if you needed to. So that's a way to kind of store them too. Or sometimes shoulder straps have something like this through them too. So you guys run through plate carriers and things like this before. So you could keep them like this and route them through and have something that secures them back there or something like that. So you could pull them through that way too. So that's just a kind of a quick and dirty way to carry restraints too, rather than kind of having to take off a backpack and reach for them, if that's something that concerns you. But then, non-lethal stuff, I've carried pepper spray grenades before. I've got some over there. I think we walked through that, how to basically quickly pull off a piece of tape and pop open the cap for something like that. Walked through that. We'll put a link to that, because we have talked about that before once, and I won't spend too much time with that. But those pepper spray kind of grenades are great if you're basically eating or something like that too. You're running away from somebody that's chasing you. You could always pop one of those pepper spray grenades and throw it behind you and hopefully blast them with that as you keep running. So that's an idea for non-lethal stuff. So hopefully that kind of addresses that question. Second, you have how many spare magazines is enough? That's a pretty loaded question. I'm not quite sure how to answer that, so I'll field it in terms of kind of what I have as a standard loadout typically. So depending on the kind of rig I'm running, I'll either run 4 5.56 mags or 7 5.56 mags. So that's the difference between a little over 100 rounds or a little under 200 rounds, because I only load to 28 when I load mags. So I think it's like 196 for 7 mags and 116 or something like that for 4 mags. So most mag pouches are either single stack mag pouches or double stack mag pouches, which is why you get the 4 or 7, because when you double stack them, you've got 6 plus 1 in the gun. Single stack them, you've got 3 plus 1 in the gun. So that's kind of how I've arrived at that, those numbers. So, and that's typical. It really just depends. Depends on where you're at, what your mission parameters are, or what you're up against, how you're training, all that kind of stuff. So there's really no right answer to that question, I will say that. And then pistol mags, it really depends too. Typically during concealed carry, I might carry a spare magazine, so that might be a total of 2. Sometimes I don't, that's just 1 magazine. And then if I'm on the range or something like that, typically I'll run 2 spare mags and then 1 in the gun, so that could be 3. So these are 15 round mags for my Glock 19, so that could be a total of 45 rounds. Or the Glock 43 I carry, it's 6 plus 1 in the gun. So that's kind of those are kind of some just rough numbers on magazine estimates and things like that too. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, next question comes from Sean F. on Twitter, who asked, Brian, can you please elaborate on your decision to use a messenger bag versus a backpack for everyday use? Yeah, it really depends on what I'm carrying, really. First, that's kind of what dictates what I carry on an everyday, daily basis. If I'm doing something, if I'm outdoors or doing an activity like that, typically I'll always run a backpack. That's a given. If I'm hiking around or something like that, 2 shoulder straps are far superior to 1 from a messenger bag or even a sling bag, in my opinion. So that's what I would run if I was outdoors. So, but daily commute and things like that, I'm typically carrying a laptop and folders and things like that, and cords and things to support my laptop and electronics, like charging cables and things like that. And a lot of the times I feel like a messenger bag is really quick to just grab and throw over shoulder and walk to and from my vehicle or to and from a meeting or something like that. So typically I prefer a messenger bag for kind of that daily carry type stuff. So that's kind of where my decision lies in what I want to carry. I have been using that Blade 20 from Arc'teryx lately too as a daily pack. I've just been kind of experimenting with that, and I find that that's a pretty good pack too. I don't have it with me, but we've talked about it before on Gear Tasting, and Rob wrote a pretty good article on that pack too that we'll link to below in the description for this video. But this is our discreet messenger bag, and we've gotten a lot of comments on these. Yes, they're coming back. Before you guys ask in the comments, it's just production's been a kind of a beast on these, so we're getting them as soon as we can, but that's really all the information we really have on those. So there might be some new colorways. I don't know, just FYI. So hope that answers your question. All right, so Sean has one more question. What kind of radio do you typically carry around, and what do you augment it with when you go overlanding? I'll actually show you what I carry in my vehicle, so let's go check it out. Okay, so inside my vehicle, what I have, just to kind of go through some electronics too, because I'm sure I've been asked that. If not, I will be asked. So what I do is I have a RAM mount up here that comes from the floorboard, and this is where I keep my phone. And I also have a charging cable that runs right here for my iPhone, so I can kind of keep that here for navigation purposes and things like that. But when it comes to comms in the vehicle, I have a CB radio, and that's what I use vehicle to vehicle when overlanding and stuff like that too. Or in emergency situations, I can get on the CB too. I am going to upgrade this to a ham setup too eventually once I pass my ham test, which I took once and missed by 2 points, and haven't been back yet to do it. So one of these days I will get that done, and Ham will be in this vehicle too. But for now, basically what I've got is this radio here, and this is the Cobra W75WXST is the model number on this. So it's basically just this handheld unit that I can change channels on and communicate basically on a handheld radio like this too. So what I like to do too is, instead of having to have both my hands or come down here where it's stored, I have a little clip down here that the radio rests at, and I can grab it when I need it. And then when I'm communicating, I can come over here and stick it in that thing too, so that I can kind of hear it and grab it if I need to communicate with. So that's kind of how I have that set up here too. And then I've got a big antenna on the back. It's a Fire Stick antenna, and that's what is kind of routed through here. I went through the back. The hookup for something like that is a little bit much. It took me a long time to kind of get all that wired in and hooked up and plugged into the battery for power and all that good stuff, but that's kind of how I have that fielded in here. I also carry this as a backup. This is a Midland 75-822, and what I like about this unit is that it's kind of dual purpose. So it's got an adapter to go into a cigarette lighter. So you take off the battery pack like this, and this is AA batteries, which is nice. So I've got that ability to have batteries for a CB radio too. And then you can slide on another piece that actually goes into your cigarette lighter for power. And then it's got its own antenna too if I need it. But what I like to do is carry it kind of in this configuration like this, because what I can do is I've got a magnet mount antenna like this on another, basically on a cord. So this antenna plugs into the top in here. Yeah, there's an adapter I have. Sorry, I was forgetting something. There's an adapter, so that antenna plugs into the adapter and then goes into the top of that antenna mount. And then this can go up high on my roof, so that if if I'm not getting power to this radio, at least I have this to communicate with. So that's kind of my backup communication device. So I like these because they're pretty versatile. They're not very expensive either, the Midland 75-822. So I have one of these in my wife's car too, for her main CB radio, because she doesn't like to have all this stuff set up in her 4Runner. So that's kind of how I have that configured. And then, like I said, one of these days there will be CB in here, and that's kind of the extent of communications inside my FJ. Hey guys, thanks for watching Gear Tasting. Remember, if you have any questions, use the pound tag Gear Tasting on any social media network, and we will get them answered here on the show. As always, if you like what we're doing here on Gear Tasting, please consider joining either our support membership to allow you to give you back something in return, or shop at our store. We've got the store link below. We've got tons of great stuff that I know you'll like. Thanks for watching.